Hello folks, welcome to Legacy IS Academy. In this video, we will be discussing Polity Prelims question analysis. So what we will be doing is, on the chapter of amendment of the constitution, we will be seeing all the previous year UPSC prelims questions on amendment topic. How or what can you expect from this video means, first and foremost, we will do a deep analysis of each of these questions, and most importantly, like I told you, this is high scoring, so this will give you an idea as to how to read this subject and why UPSC asked a question that it has asked. Understanding what was the rationale behind it or logic behind it. Once you know this, you will be able to read the topic in the similar manner. So you have to read based on how they are asking the questions. Okay, now this video is presented to you by your faculty Sushma KP. Now without further ado, let's start the video. So how we will start is, first we will be taking all the previous year questions on amendment, discuss the question, then the rationale behind why it was asked. Okay, the first question, consider the following statements. The 44th Amendment to the Constitution of India introduced an article placing the election of Prime Minister beyond judicial review. Now, the first and foremost suggestion that I would give you for a statement kind of question is, break down the statement into keywords. That is, the keyword should help you be able to arrive at a conclusion easier. So that is why keyword is first thing. Now let's see what are the keywords here. Here it says 44th Amendment, election of Prime Minister, okay, is beyond judicial review. These three are the things. Okay. Now let's see the second statement. The Supreme Court of India struck down the 99th Amendment to the Constitution of India as being violative of the independence of judiciary. So here also let's do the keyword analysis. Supreme Court 99th Amendment violative of independence. Okay. So now let's see the first statement. What are they asking? Which of the above statements are correct? The first statement is telling 44th Amendment did so and so. See, first and foremost, for the static amendments, this is the current affair amendment. This is a static amendment. This question is asked in 2019 prelims. So, static amendments means amendments which has already happened. How do you study means not just by heart what that amendment was. See the background of it and timeline of it. What do I mean by this? Look at this. 44th Amendment was during your 1978 period. Yes. Your emergency was somewhere from 1975 to 77. So your 44th Amendment was post-emergency amendment. And 44th Amendment is usually regarded as the amendment which try to reduce the errors or your erroneous concepts, or more of take a recourse back to the action kind of amendment. So, do you think that 44th Amendment would have told that election of Prime Minister is beyond judicial review? No, this has to be which particular article means something that will be from emergency provision period of time. So this is post-emergency, which means it is a corrective action. So this statement will be wrong. Understanding? The next statement, like I told you, in amendments only, static amendment, dynamic amendment, which means something in the current affairs. So this was your dynamic. 99th Amendment was struck down as it was aiming to set down NJSC, which will dilute your independence of judiciary. So this is correct. So among both these statements which are correct means it is 2 only. Okay. So like we discussed, 44th Amendment introduced the article placing election of Prime Minister beyond judicial review becomes wrong. Which amendment actually introduced it? It was 39th Constitutional Amendment, which held that election of President, Vice President, Prime Minister, Speaker of Lok Sabha, all are beyond your judicial review. Also, in your Indira Gandhi versus Raj Narayan case, Supreme Court struck down this provision stating that it is violative of the basic structure. And also, your 44th Amendment is more of your course corrective action. Understanding? So, 44th Amendment will not sit here. Irrespective of the fact whether you buy hard these or not, first understand the base of it. So, that point of time, looking at this statement, you will be able to know whether it is more of a recourse action or a drastic measure. Statement 2. Supreme Court struck down 99th Amendment as violative of independence of judiciary. That is correct. I told you it is a dynamic, current affair based. 99th Amendment was going to create NJC, National Judicial Appointments Council Commission. Why was this brought up? In order to replace the more opaque collegium system. And also your NJSC, your collegium system is completely dominated by judiciary. Complete control is under judiciary. NJSC, there is also your executives which are present. So, Supreme Court Advocates on Record Association was Union of India case pe. They struck down 99th constitutional amendment stating that it violated the basic structure. Now, why exactly did UPSC even ask this question in the first place? See, it becomes very easier to get you confused in amendments. Okay. Your 39th Amendment largely you can be seen as your emergency era, where there was barring of judicial review on the elections of Prime Minister, President, understanding the important head of positions. And also, if you leave anything outside the ambit of judicial review, this undermines your democracy and basic structure. Whereas your 44th Amendment is more of like reversing emergency excesses. Understanding this restores judicial review and democratic confidence. So that is one of the important reasons why amendments, not just by hearting it, but was the timeline and background behind it has to be the important thing. Okay. Now, what kind of questions can come from this topics if you see? Look at your amendments, that is your static amendments, especially in your 1970s decade into two phases. Emergency amendment, post-emergency amendments. Which are your emergency amendments which you have to know? 38th Amendment, 39th Amendment, 42nd Amendment. So post-emergency would be 44th. I'm targeting about your 1970s decade. 44th Amendment was largely in order to undo your emergency excesses. So you have to link it to your basic structure also. Whether the statement they have given is it violative of basic structure or not. Okay. Lastly, you have to always look out for this absolute words. What are absolute words? Like only, okay, and the concept of all, right? So very absolute or drastic statements will usually be wrong. Okay. Now, what exactly is UPSC trying to do with this? It tests UPSC concepts over rote learning, which means if you just by heart the amendments, it is not going to get you much ahead. What is going to get is conceptual clarity on judicial review and judicial independence, historical awareness regarding your emergency era, and also elimination techniques like I told you, the wrong amendments or your extreme statements, and also making sure that current affair okay, dynamic amendments also are kept into mind, and interlinking your amendment case and the doctrine behind it, that is your basic structure doctrine. So this helps you understand the topic more, which will help you in elimination understanding. Whereas if you by heart, there is high likely chances you might forget it. Okay. Next question is your 2014 prelims question. Look at this question. Which one of the following schedules of the Constitution of India contains provisions regarding anti-defection? This is a straightforward question. Okay. Again, something to do with your static dynamics. Options are second schedule, fifth schedule, eighth schedule, 10th schedule. Answer is 10th schedule is anti-defection. So I would suggest for you to just, let's say, keep an account of what the 12 schedules are. Originally, we only had 8 schedules. Then now we have 12 schedules. What are those? Just make a tab of that, just so that this kind of direct questions, you should not lose marks. Now, what is this anti-defection? Your anti-defection was introduced in your 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act, which added your 10th schedule. What is this 10th schedule for means? This is in order to bring a fair practice post your election. What is this fair practice post your election means? Now let's say your MPs and MLAs, they will contest, let's say with affiliations to certain party. Then they will win the seat from that party. Then they go on after oath taking ceremony, they have assumed office, they will switch loyalties. So if they constantly keep switching the loyalties, then it becomes very difficult to run the country, because there's always a fear of instability. So in order to prevent this, where your MPs or elected MPs or MLAs will keep switching from party to party, also sometimes referred to in your news media outlets as horse trading. So in order to prevent this, they have introduced this anti-defection. That is, you can't go against the decision of your party whip with respect to voting, election, okay, and adherence to your party discipline, all of these things. Okay, in this they also include the concept of your split and merger. That is another concept where we will speak about what point of time, if let's say a certain chunk of your party itself breaks to form another party, what will be the conditions there. Okay, so all these factors you have to look into detail in anti-defection. Okay, so what is this for? It prevents MPs or MLAs from switching parties post the election, and they can't vote against your party whip. Disciplinary actions will be taken. Next, why is UPSC asking this question in the first place? See, the whole point of your anti-defection was one important thing: for bringing in political stability. Political stability becomes very important in order to make sure, if you have to be focusing on governance, you should not be constantly worrying about when your party will be out of power. Yes, so here it is very easy to confuse you with the schedules, so thus they give this kind of options. Okay, there is nothing much here you can do about it, only if you know you will answer this. That is why I'm telling you, know all the 12 schedules. Next, this is a 2013 prelims question. Have a look at this. Consider the following statements. An amendment to the Constitution of India can be initiated by introduction of a bill in the Lok Sabha only. Now, again, I told you, in these statements, look for keywords. What is the keyword here? They are telling amendment to the Constitution can be initiated by the introduction of bill in the Lok Sabha only. Okay. Second statement. If such an amendment seeks to make changes in the federal character of the Constitution, amendment also requires to be ratified by the legislature of all states of India. Okay. What is the keywords here? Again, same: amendment, federal character, legislature of all states of India. What are they asking? Which of the above statements are correct? Now look at this. Amendment to the Constitution of India can be introduced only in Lok Sabha. Amendment can be introduced in the House of Parliament. By the House of Parliament, either House of Parliament. So which means either Lok Sabha or either Rajya Sabha. There is no provision of only Lok Sabha. This is what I told you in the previous question as drastic questions. Okay. So these kind of things you have to be on the lookout for. So this statement is wrong. Now, second statement, if such an amendment seeks to make changes in federal character, that is, if something affects center-state relations, amendment also requires state ratification by the state legislature. That is correct. But here look, they are using all the states. But if you have to amend provisions, that is, let's say an amendment is brought in, there are some federal provisions that are getting affected, then you only need more than half of the states. You need only more than half of the states to ratify this, and that too with a simple majority. So here the statement of all the states makes it wrong. If this all word was not there, okay, and just half of the states was replaced by it, then the statement would have become correct. So here they're asking correct statement. Neither one are correct. So option is neither one nor two. Okay. Like we said, your amendment procedure is under Article 368, where the first statement telling that the bill can be introduced only in Lok Sabha is wrong. It's in either house of parliament. Second statement telling federal provisions has to be ratified by all states, wrong, more than half of the states. The question will come as to why did they ask this question. See, here is where you have to be very much watchful and mindful of the words. Why I'm telling mindful of the words is, let's say this is some 67 question. In a busy while you are answering, you will tend to overlook just small keywords like this. Okay, so these two are the changing factors here to answer this question. If you overlook this, then your entire answer will become wrong. Understanding? So in these kind of questions, amendment kind of questions, how they can ask a trap or set a trap is just with these keywords. Understanding? That is why I told how to deal with this, underline the important aspects in the question in the starting itself, so you will not get confused. Okay. Next is 2009 prelims question. Have a look at this question. Which one of the following constitutional amendments states that total number of ministers, including the Prime Minister, in the Council of Ministers shall not exceed 15% of total number of members of the House of People? In simple sense, what are they asking? Now, when there is a long statement question, okay, it gets very easy to get drifted off. So break down the question into smaller chunk. What are they asking? Total number of ministers, PM plus COM, shall not exceed 15% of LS, House of People. So this one statement is what the question is asking. They are telling this provision was brought about in which amendment? Okay, this one you will be only able to answer if you know the answer. Understanding? First thing. Second thing is, remember I told you about static and dynamic amendments. This comes under your static amendments. That is something that has happened. Also, this is a 2005 question, but still presently it becomes a static question. What is the answer? 90th constitutional amendment, 91st, 92nd, 93rd. You see the options are consecutive numbers. You have to know this to answer. So 91st amendment becomes important for these reasons. So not all amendments you have to by heart, just very important ones. So the correct answer is 91st constitutional amendment. Okay. So the 91st constitutional amendment is telling that at the center, the total council of ministers, including the prime minister, cannot be more than 15%. Okay, of your Lok Sabha strength. Now, with respect to the state legislative assembly level, The strength of total ministers, council of ministers, including the chief minister, shall not be more than 15% of total strength of legislative assembly. Understanding? So, this provision was brought about was for one important aspect. What is that aspect means? Your political parties, especially when it is, let's say, coalition, understanding. So, in order to appease your opposition or in order to cater to the interest of several sections, they try to bring in or bulk up the council of ministers. Understanding? That is not considered very, okay, a smart way of dealing with the political aspects. Just creating large number of minister is just going to hurdle up the decision making process rather than ease out and smoothen this. Okay, so your UPSC tries to test on these confusion. If not for 91st or 92nd, any one number you confuse, that entire question goes wrong. That is why important amendments like the 44th, 42nd, 39, 91st, okay, all these have to be looked into. Your 104th, right? Next question. This is a 2008 prelims question. Look at this. Under which one of the following constitutional amendment acts four languages were added to the English 8th schedule of the constitution, thereby raising their number to 22? So in simpler sense, let's again break this down. They are telling four languages were added to 8th schedule. By the four languages adding to 8th schedule, total number of languages in 8th schedule became 22. Which amendment was this? 19, 91st, 92nd, 93rd. Again the same provision. Consecutive numbers. Only if you know, you will be able to answer. Okay. So we know from previous question 91st we can eliminate. And this is not like remaining three others, so you can isolate these things. You have to know this in order to answer this. Straightforward question, static question. The correct answer here is your 92nd Constitutional Amendment Act. It added four languages to your 8th schedule. What are the four languages? Bodo, Dogri, Maithili, and Santali. So this increased from schedule languages of 18 to 22. This was that year ka static. Now next, look at this question. This is a 2007 prelims question. Have a look at this question. Which of the following constitutional amendment acts seek that the size of council of ministers at the center and in state must not exceed 15% of total number of members in Lok Sabha and total number of members in the legislative assembly of the state respectively. Do you see, this is a repetitive question that we have seen from earlier. So what I have told for a bulky question, you break it down to statement. All they are trying to tell is they're telling PM plus COM, CM plus COM. This is your executive, central executive, state executive should not exceed 15% of the strength of Lok Sabha for your center and legislative assembly for the state. Which amendment is that? Again, here the options are 91st, 93rd, 95th, 97. It is 91st Constitutional Amendment Act. Understanding? So, the possibility, if you see in amendments, there is an option of repetition. So, that is why I am telling, take a note of these important amendments. Next, the same thing like we discussed, 91st Constitutional Amendment, put a cap on the Council of Ministers limit, okay, in order to avoid bulking up of your COM, and then it will just be large in number where effective decisions cannot be taken. Understanding? So, at the center, total ministers, including a prime minister, the executive or the ministers, council of ministers, should not exceed 15% of strength of Lok Sabha. Now, at the state, the total number of council of ministers, including a chief minister, should not exceed more than 15% of the total strength of the respective state legislative assembly. Understanding? Now, this is a 2006 prelims question. Have a look at this question. Consider the following statements. Free and compulsory education to the children of 6 to 14 years age group by the state by the 76th Amendment to the Constitution of India. Like I told you, again, look for keywords in statement kind of question. If it's a bulkier one, reduce or break down the question. So here they are telling free and compulsory education, 6 to 14 years of age, 76th Amendment. One more keyword I will suggest is, when they give it is 76, you convert it into your number and write it down above. Understanding? This is first statement. Second statement. Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan seeks to provide computer education even in rural areas. SSA, Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, computer education in rural areas. And now, third statement. Education was included in the concurrent list by 42nd Amendment 1976 to the Constitution of India. Keywords here are education, concurrent list, and 42nd Amendment. Now, first and foremost, look at this. This is an amendment kind of question only, right? Free compulsory education, children of 6 to 14 years of age group by the state. All this is correct. But here it is not 76th, it is 86th constitutional amendment. Do you see the difference how they have just tried to trick you with the amendment number? So, because of that, this statement is wrong. 86th Constitutional Amendment of 2002 was the one that added free and compulsory education, not 76th Amendment. Just with this changes, and like I told you, let's say you are in a hurry, you are somewhere around 78, 79 question, and you tend to neglect these keywords. Okay, when you read and go, it might appear like, yes, this is true. That is why I will write it down like this. So when you see the number, it will strike somewhere. Understanding? Next. Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan seeks to provide computer education even in rural areas. This is more of a governance based question. And also look at this. Generalistic components, see this. Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan seeks to provide computer education as a good concept, holistic education. Even in rural areas, since it is holistic education means it is for both urban rural areas. There is nothing drastic in this statement. This is correct. Education was included in the concurrent list. Initially, it was in the state list, but it was added in concurrent list by your 42nd Amendment. So, this statement is correct. The correct options are 2 and 3 only. Okay. So, the first statement here, they are trying to trap you with just the constitutional numbers. Shift from 86 to 76. Okay. So 86th Amendment also inserted your Article 21A, which made education, that is primary education, a basic fundamental right. Next statement to Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, wanting to provide computer education in rural areas, is a fine statement. What was Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan? It was about universalization of elementary education. It tries to bridge your urban and rural gap. And lastly, it promotes digital literacy in schools. Last statement, 42nd Amendment added your education to concurrent list from state list to concurrent list so that both center and state can legislate on education. Now, 86th Amendment, if we are just going to have a look at this, what and all did it add means, it was in the year 2002. Like I told you, important Okay, articles amendments, have a look at that. In that list, add your 86th Constitutional Amendment Act also, wherein it inserted article fundamental right under Article 21A, which is a right to education for the age group of 16 to 14 years. This was made as a compulsory right. Free and compulsory education became the keyword. Okay, the scheme was also this concept of Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan also was brought in, and also 42nd Amendment brought your education to concurrent list. So here the trap of the amendments, be careful next time if it comes in statement kind of questions. You just saw how 86 was changed to 76. If you see your why exactly UPSC tries to ask questions of this way. It is a multi-dimensional testing. What is it? Which means first you are trying to set a trap through your amendment. Second is you are trying to align a government scheme also in that statement, bringing your governance with polity of Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, universal elementary education, rural digital literacy. And last is you are also in the third statement asking about federal structure between your center and state ability to legislate on a common topic. Okay, where something your education from state list was moved to your concurrent list in 42nd Amendment, wherein who center state can legislate. So do you see how your constitutional amendment, government scheme, and federal structure, all three were tested in this one question? So this is how your amendments become important. Next, this is a 2005 prelims question. Have a look at this. Part, consider the following statements. Part 9 of the Constitution of India contains provisions for panchayats and were inserted in the Constitution by 73rd Amendment Act of 1992. Keywords here are Part 9 of the Constitution, panchayats, 73rd Constitutional Amendment. Next, Part 9A of the Constitution of India contains provision for municipalities, and Article 243Q envisages the creation of Nagar Panchayat for transitional areas, a municipal council for smaller urban areas, municipal corporation for larger urban areas in every state. Part 9A, municipalities, 243Q, it creates the concept of your Nagar Panchayats, understanding? So in this, they are trying to ask more of your static only. So which means in the list of amendments which I told are important, you have to add 73rd and 74th constitutional amendment. What were the changes that were brought about? What were the subjects that was added? Understanding what was the transition that they tried to create between your urban and rural. Okay, who or what is it called? Let's say head of your municipal corporation is what, head of your municipal council is what. Okay, these kind of things becomes very important to be noted. So this also becomes important under your list of important amendments. So here it is, both 1 and 2 statements are correct. Now if you're going to have a look at your Panchayat Raj roughly, this is your local self bodies, panchayat and municipalities. After your 73rd, 74th Amendment, a two-tier structure of center and state became center, state, and local bodies. Local bodies comprising of panchayat and municipalities. Panchayati Raj was bought for your rural areas in your 73rd Constitutional Amendment. 11th schedule was added. 29 subjects were brought in. Minimum age to contest for the elections for your panchayat is 21 years. This also offers reservation for SC, ST, women chairpersons positions. Okay, and the devolution of funds and all from your state will be looked after by your State Finance Commission. Next, for your municipal governance is for your urban areas. Amendment is for 74th Constitutional Amendment. 12th schedule was added. 18 subjects were brought about. Many municipal bodies were created based on the size and population. And also they kept the concept of ward committees, which were very important. And also same thing, devolution of funds to your state finance commission from your state to your municipalities or local bodies. Okay, next, look at this. The Constitution 99th Amendment Act is related to empowering the center to levy and appropriate service tax, constitution of National Judicial Commission, readjustment of electoral constituency on population, demarcation of new boundaries between states. Correct option is constitution of your NJAC, National Judicial Commission. Again, in the list of important amendments, you will also have to add your 99th Constitutional Amendment Act, where your Supreme Court struck down NJAC and 99th Constitutional Amendment Act, stating it was violative of basic structure. Understanding? So in amendments topic, you have seen the questions. What I would suggest is write down a list of important amendments, the source or the timeline or background on why it was coming into picture. So it will help you in elimination type and avoid your confusion traps of your amendment numbers. Okay. So the last aspects, if you see about 99th Constitutional Amendment Act, it was brought about to replace your opaque collegium system. What is collegium system? It is a way for appointment of judges, and also this was bought, your NJSC was brought to replace that collegium system. Collegium system entirely consists of your judicial control. NJSC consists of your executive control also. Now, this was struck down by a Supreme Court, citing it as unconstitutional because it interferes with the independence of judiciary. And the independence of judiciary is considered as a basic structure doctrine. Okay. So, NJSC, if it was to come in, it would replace collegium system, where with the addition of Chief Justice of India, two senior most judges, there will be eminent persons and also your law minister. Supreme Court struck it down as it violates independence of judiciary and thus basic structure within. So what is UPSC trying to test here? Your institutional evolution and also how your judiciary try to maintain its independence coupled with the amendments. Okay. Last three questions, if you see, your education, local governance, NJSC, everything is about important amendments only. 86th Constitutional Amendment, 73rd, 74th Amendment, 99th Constitutional Amendment. Okay, so you have to learn the background and what are their aspects. For example, like we saw in education, 86th Amendment introduced Article 21A, fundamental right for free and compulsory education under your Article 21A, and also 42nd Amendment added education and state list to concurrent list. Next, local governance added panchayats under 73rd Amendment and municipality under your 74th Amendment. 11th and 12th schedules were created here. Your NJS in the 99th Constitutional Amendment Act was struck down by judiciary because it was violating your independence of judiciary and thus the basic structure itself. So this is how you have to just okay, look at this. A rough structure. Topic, amendment, what did it do, backgrounds. Okay, just have a look at this. So when you are writing down about amendments also, keep it simplistic, don't overburden or create big notes. What was the year? What was the background? What was the changes? Understanding? So in that way, if you do, it will be very easier for you to remember amendments. Okay. With this, we've come to the end of the content. If you like our content, subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, share it along with your friends. Thank you.